Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at some source material today that hits you right away with this really striking contrast.
Yeah, that line, he smiled like a hero, but ruled like a ghost. It just grabs you.
It really does. And it sets up our subject perfectly. Idi Amin, often known, of course, as the Butcher of Uganda.
And what we want to do, really, is use these sources we have to try and understand that very contrast. How does someone who starts out seemingly charming, even liked,
Right.
how do they become, well, one of history's most brutal dictators? We need to unpack the methods and maybe get into the psychology a bit based on what's here.
Because he wasn't, born this way, the sources paint a picture of him early on, tall, athletic, a soldier.
Liked by the British officers who trained him, apparently. Had that charisma.
Exactly. He could make people feel, as the source puts it, seen, protected, powerful, knew how to work a room, crack a joke.
But behind that charm, something else was happening. The sources suggest he was learning, observing, not just how to be liked, but how to control.
Learning the power of fear.
Yeah, learning that fear, maybe humiliation too, could be more effective than just physical force sometimes. And that loyalty. Well, forced obedience might be more reliable in the long run. It wasn't just instinct. It seems like calculations started early.
Which leads us to 1971, the coup. President Obote is away.
And bam, Panks in Kampala, pretty much overnight. It was bloodless initially.
Which is incredible because the reaction wasn't fear, it was joy. People actually cheered. They thought they were being liberated from Ogote.
They really did, which makes that line from the source so chilling. Their nightmare had only just begun. He played that moment perfectly.
Master of the public image, right. Banquets, handing out cash, posing with kids.
Oh, yeah. Calling himself the last king of Scotland, giving these wild, rambling speeches.
And the sources argued this wasn't just him being erratic, it was strategic.
Seems like it. A way to keep the public focus on this larger-than-life persona while behind the scenes.
Yeah. While the terror began. Because almost immediately, the bodies started piling up. Political rivals, judges, academics, students. Anyone perceived as a threat.
They just vanished. And the sources mentioned the State Research Bureau, the SRB.
Yeah, that sounds horrifying. People went in screaming and you didn't see them again.
And this gets to what the material highlights as his core principle. It wasn't about truth. It was about belief. Making people believe what he needed them to believe.
Paranoia as policy.
Exactly. Betrayal was made random, unpredictable. You didn't have to do anything concrete, just a whisper. Someone doesn't like you, you're gone.
Creating this environment where absolutely no one felt safe. Constant fear.
That's the psychology of terror the sources talk about, isn't it? Control perception, mess with reality, punish without clear reason, keep everyone completely off balance.
And the expulsion of the Ugandan Asians, 50,000 people, is such a stark example. Doctors, engineers, business owners.
Given 90 days to leave, it shattered the economy.
But he spun it, right, as reclaiming Uganda for Ugandans.
Ethnic cleansing disguised as patriotism, as one source puts it. Rallied some support, even as it destroyed the country's backbone.
And somehow he justified all this. To different audiences, in different ways.
It seems so. Telling the West he's liberating Africa, telling Africa he's defending black pride, and telling himself apparently that he was doing God's work.
That's chilling. The idea that a ruler can believe their own cruelty is righteous. The sources suggest that makes them the most dangerous kind.
Definitely. And by the late 70s, Uganda was collapsing. The scale of the killing was becoming undeniable, even internationally.
But he just kept smiling, kept up the facade. Until the Tanzania invasion.
Yeah, that was the final overreach. His army basically fell apart, and he just slipped away.
Fled silently, escaped justice, lived out his years in exile, died peacefully, unbelievably.
So looking back through these sources, his rule wasn't about ideology, was it? Not really.
No, it feels like it was about unpredictability, illusion, and just raw, calculated terror. He weaponized the human mind, as the material says.
And that central lesson keeps coming through. To control a nation, you don't actually need truth.
You just need fear, absolute fear, and maybe the ruler's own unshakable belief that they're untouchable.
So wrapping up this deep dive, the main takeaway is really how Amin maintained control. Not through logic or popular ideas, but through cultivating intense fear and this image of being invincible.
And understanding that psychology, how you can warp perception, blur reality, use randomness as a weapon that feels really important.
It does. Which brings us to that final thought the sources leave us with.
Even monsters smile.
Makes you think, doesn't it? What does it mean when the most terrifying figures hide behind charm or just act normal? What other lessons about power and fear should we be taking away here?